We started with Original Sinner, and now we have Wicked Believer. Today I have Kait Ballenger back to talk about book 2 in her series. What happens when a woman, Charlotte, escapes a religious cult and then ends up working for, and then ends up dating, and then ends up engaged to Lucifer. All of his brothers and sister are the 7 deadly sins as well, and it's just a fantastic time, including the introduction of Daddy Death. We talk about a whole bunch through this interview, so I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Busy Reading Romantasy, a video podcast that discusses books that merge elements of romance and fantasy while occasionally exploring other genres. We get to escape our world and dive deep into themes of good versus evil, power dynamics, and all of the delicious taboo topics. Curiosity and open-mindedness are a must. That being said, this is a podcast for mature audiences only and will contain spoilers. Your mental health matters, so be sure to check the trigger warnings of each book to decide if this is the right episode for you to listen to. Now, let's get into today's episode. Yeah, fill me in. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
Well, Wicked Believer is now out, but also I have been working on the 3rd book in the series. So I just wrapped edits up for Beautiful Redeemer, which is book 3, and will be out on May 19th. So mid next year, and I'm very excited about that.
Congrats! That's awesome. That's so exciting to hear. So have you been doing a lot of writing, obviously? Have you done any fun events or anything?
I was very much just in the writing cave. Like it was a tighter deadline for Beautiful Redeemer, and I knew that going into the deadline. So like I had cleared off my schedule, and I was like, okay, this is the only thing that I'm focusing on. I did go on a fun writing retreat with some fellow author friends, Abigail Owen, Mariah Ankenman, and Elm Jed at the end of June, and we went to Colorado and like had a great time. But other than that, I have not done a whole lot of traveling. There will be some conferences coming up for me, though. I will be at Smut Lovers in Orlando later this month. And then I will also be at Romantasy Book Con in Orlando in October. So I'm looking forward to those.
Perfect. I'm excited to see you at Smut Lovers. I just spoke, literally my last interview I just posted was with Ashley, who's the assistant director, and we got to talk all about how much I love that event. Last year it meant a lot to me, and I'm very excited to go this year.
I'm super excited. This will be my first year, so I'm like, I can't wait.
The way that they facilitate the education, I feel like my world completely opened up, and I think that they set a really great tone as far as expectations and safety and like all the good things that you want to stay on top of when you have hundreds of people gathering together.
Yes, I love hearing that. Yeah, I'm super excited for that event and cannot wait.
Yeah. Are you planning to go to the after party? Do you have an outfit? Is like my hot question I've been asking everyone.
I do not have one planned yet.
Fair.
I'm still kind of looking and figuring it out.
Fair.
Everything since the start of the summer for me has been kind of a whirlwind, because like I was in a black hole basically of working on Beautiful Redeemer, and then went straight into edits. And then when edits were done, my kids and I had booked earlier in the year that we were going on a cruise, and so I was like out of pocket for like a whole week, no access to internet, anything, which was lovely. But then I got back and it was immediately the release of like Wicked Believer, and I was like, okay, everything is just a whirlwind. I'm so not prepared for these conferences.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I admire your ability to follow through and take that time off, despite what it may have felt like coming back to the internet noise.
Coming back to like its release week was like, oh wow.
Oh yeah. Stuff is happening. We're going.
Yes.
Uh,
But like in
well,
the best of ways, right? Like I
yeah.
love hearing from readers, like I love getting, messages from them about how much they loved the book. So like it was a positive like chaos.
Absolutely. I can imagine. I can imagine. But yeah, so that is what we are here to talk about today is Wicked Believer. We had done the very first book of the series, so you should absolutely go check out that episode first before you catch up. This is the second book. But if you're in the right place, you know that we talk all spoilers. So once we get into that portion, diving in a little bit deeper. But before we get into specifically the book, I'd like to just kind of explore. I know you've written other books.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm just curious, what was it like writing book one, where you're creating and explaining and setting the scene and everything going into a book two? Was anything different as far as the writing process?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the process itself changes a lot, but there was an interesting element for me because I've written several other previous series, like you mentioned, but in all my other series, they're interconnected standalones. So it's a different couple each book. So I'm not really used to following characters for more than one book.
Fair.
But at the same time, I am very much a character first writer. I love writing characterization. Like, I love thinking about characterization. It's one of my top priorities, like, as an author. So I was very excited by the prospect of getting to spend a whole nother book, and now since then 2 books, right, with
Yeah.
these characters, because like that let me go into a level of depth with playing with their characterization that I haven't gotten to do previously. So creatively for me, that was very exciting. Process wise, I don't know that much about the process changed, but I knew like that there were elements that I had to carry through, right? Like you look at the makeup of your initial book in the series and you're like, okay, how do I take all these elements that readers loved about book one and then heighten them and make more tension and more drama and just like up everything? So it's basically like telling yourself you have to up the ante, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. And that is a great point because both of those things are mainly what I came to talk about today. One being Charlotte's whole character arc throughout the book and where we end up with her. And also, as you said, upping the ante. I was all about it. I loved it.
oh,
It
thank
was like,
you.
yes, it's happening. So, again, before we dive into book two, do you mind just kind of recapping a little bit around where book one ended and where the start of book two has us?
Yeah. So in Original Sinner, the 7 deadly sins are now these billionaire celebrities who live topside in New York City. Everybody's wondering where God is, and so Charlotte and Lucifer meet in book one. She's his employee. They end up fake dating, and then by the time we are at the end of Original Sinner, they are very much a real couple. Charlotte nearly dies, and she is brought back to life by God's redemption, which is gifted to Lucifer. He wins the little like competition that's going on with his family for God's redemption, and instead of keeping it for himself, he decides to gift it to Charlotte because he does not want her to die. He's actually in love with her at this point. And so she's brought back to life, suddenly made immortal by this. And that's where we end book one is Charlotte is suddenly newly immortal. They are kind of enjoying their time together. And there's a threat toward Charlotte's life, right? A big cliffhanger right at the end of book one. So we start book two very much dealing with the aftermath of all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have realized, I think that's becoming another trope that I hadn't really thought about, but now that I've read it a few times, the idea of the main character becoming immortal or gaining some sort of powers, and them exploring like what that means.
Yes.
I enjoy it. Obviously,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
fun to see like what can you do, what's gonna happen, where's this gonna go, you know?
Yes, I love that trope too, but at the same time, I have a pet peeve with that trope. And
Oh, okay.
the pet peeve I have with that trope is that oftentimes the character will become immortal and like will be told that they struggle, but we don't actually see them struggling with it, like
Yeah.
and having an actual hard time with their immortality. And so
Yeah.
that was very much what I was trying to do in Wicked Believer. I was like, she's actually going to have a hard time with being immortal.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it was the scene where she was like getting ready, and like when you don't even know your own strength and all of a sudden like things are
Yes.
breaking and she's like, "Oh my gosh, just a minute." Like
Yes.
definitely could see
Yeah.
that struggle.
Like I want to see the haphazard moments, right? Like I feel like so
Yeah.
often in romantasy, and not to like say anything bad about, paranormal romance or romantasy. I love the
Yeah.
genre, obviously, but I feel like oftentimes we see heroines in particular who will come into newfound power and they're like instantly masters at it. And I'm
Yep.
like, so not believable, like as a woman, right? Like when I take big strides in my life to do things that I previously couldn't do, or that I'm learning something new, you flounder, right? Like
Mhm.
you have a hard time. And I wanted that realistic element to Charlotte's journey in this book.
Absolutely. That is such a good point. And it often comes at the worst times when you're not expecting it and then you do something and
Yes.
you're like, "Oh, this is indeed a learning moment."
Yeah,
Because I
like
don't.
this is a level up and I was not ready.
Right, right. Surprise.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, opening up to kind of all of book 2. I think
Mhm.
sometimes I feel inspired to go chronologically. I think with this book, there's some big, like, overarching themes that I'd love to really touch on in a bit more detail. So not
Yeah.
necessarily like chronological events. So just kind of jumping all over, free reign.
All right.
But what was your favorite scene to write and most challenging scene as far as this book?
Ooh, my favorite scene to write was actually relatively early on in the book. It's the chase scene between Charlotte and Lucifer when they're at Charlotte's old childhood home, and he's like,
Mhm.
"Run!" Right, and he goes
Yeah.
after her. It was super sexy, but also like was really the inciting incident of the story as well, right? Because he's working to kind of pull her power that she's been holding inside herself out of her. So I liked this sort of duality of that scene of like the sexiness crossing over into something kind of dark, but we're still into it, like,
Mhm.
which is such a dark romance writer thing to say, but like, but I really enjoyed writing that scene, like, and I think it encompassed so much of the conflict of the book. So that was definitely one of my favorites to write. Um, one of the others that was probably the most difficult. I'm gonna say the most difficult was, and I say that like I don't want to say like no part of these books has been like horribly difficult to write, and I don't want to
Okay.
say that in like a way that like makes me sound like I'm being a jerk or like this is so easy for me, writing a book is so easy. Like no, that's not it at all.
Yeah.
But like these are very like Original Sinner was very much meant to be a joy project for me, and that has
Yeah.
continued over into Wicked Believer, and now like as I'm wrapping up Beautiful Redeemer, right? Like so these have been an exercise in me playing, so even the hard parts don't feel all that hard to me.
Yeah.
But I think emotionally, like the scenes that were the most difficult to write, there's a couple of them. One is the moment at the midpoint when Michael shows up in Charlotte and Lucifer's bedroom, and Charlotte just feels this absolute betrayal, thinking that Lucifer is really working to help bring about the apocalypse, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that moment of like disconnection of their relationship was like, oh, it gutted me. Another moment that really was like emotionally hard to write was Charlotte when she's like standing on top of the penthouse and she's yelling up at the sky at God, and she decides she's just gonna jump off, right? Because as a writer, that was it was a very hard balance to strike, because I didn't want her to look like she was like overtly suicidal, to be honest, like if we're
Yeah.
going totally unfiltered, because that wasn't quite what I was aiming for in the moment. I'm like, that's not where she's at. She's really just an immortal, kind of challenging the bounds of her immortality and seeing how far she can freaking push this, right? Like,
Yeah.
so striking the balance in that scene was like difficult. I had to do a couple different drafts of that scene to really get it to where I was happy with it. And then another one was writing the scene where Lucifer loses his power because, like, how do you make him stay Lucifer-ish and still like not have any of his powers? So,
Yeah.
but I was super happy with how that scene turned out in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as I've had more and more of these interviews, what's most fascinating to me is when I ask that question. I think what the like spectrum of what is seen as like difficult or just challenging in general, I
Yeah.
think it always takes me by surprise, whether it's technically, where I think some people maybe just have like really big battle scenes and they're trying to keep so many pieces in order. Or, as you said, more often, I think I get the answer of kind of more an emotional toll or an emotional scene to make sure, as you said, that you are conveying the right emotions for the scene, or even as an author, like working through that yourself to whatever degree. So
Yeah, because like our job as authors, right, is like the vision that we have in our head is always
yeah.
perfect. Like it's always like
Yeah.
better than anything that's going to end up on the page. And so then when you put it on the page, it's like the process of getting it to as close to that vision in your head as you can. And sometimes that translation process is like very difficult.
Yes, yeah, and it's really all props to you guys, because I always joke that I have a dislike for the English language, and I think for that was a long time. For a long time, it was because I felt like I didn't have the words to express how I felt.
Mm.
And so when you get wrapped up in like semantics or verbiage of like, you can say one thing and again in your head it all makes sense. I can't tell you how many times I like maybe text someone and then they have to remind me that they have no context for what's in my brain, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me explain. But I just like go right for it, and I'm like, oh yes, they are not in here. So I can imagine having to be clear on what you know as the author, when you know the story and the characters and everything's making sense in your mind, and making sure that's conveyed to the reader who has no clue and no basis what's going on or where it's going to go.
Yeah, that is like that's really the ultimate like underlying challenge of being an author.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think kind of the two main veins that I'd love to touch on is one more of the romance focus, and then of course the whole, apocalypse, end of the world, like the whole backstory. It's funny because as a reader, I think I'm aware that all of that stuff is going on, and that's what's essentially pushing the plot forward. And then all of my notes are about like the play party. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, we do need to talk about the other things as well.
That's funny.
But starting with that, on more of the romance side, I think the two most notable scenes to me personally were, as you mentioned, the one in the beginning, the chase scene, and also the value of their dynamic and using kink in that way. I think what struck me as a reader who had just said that I struggle using my words, when you have someone with like Lucifer who's like, you need to tell me, and I'd be like, no, I don't know what to say.
Yes.
Can you speak to that dynamic and their dynamic more towards the beginning? Because obviously that changes throughout the story. But yeah.
Yeah. I think Charlotte, I would say, isn't so much struggling to use her words, in that she's struggling with having had to chronically people please and kind of
Yes.
fawn. If you're familiar with fawning as a trauma response, right? Like most of her life to stay safe, right? Like,
Mhm.
so she's having to really try to figure out what she wants, why she wants it, right? Because she's always had to put everyone else's needs above her own in order to maintain like relational safety in the abusive dynamic she was in previously, right? And here's Lucifer, who's actively telling her, I need you to express these things. I need you to tell me when things have gone too far. And that's a challenge for her, right? Like she's really struggling to be able to know what she wants, what she doesn't want. And I think, you know, when you have someone in your life that can challenge you in that way to grow, like that really speaks to a depth of love, like in their, like both in their kink dynamic and in their relationship dynamic, in that they're both kind of being that for each other. Because it's not just Charlotte, like Lucifer pulling Charlotte forward, she's also challenging him to be a better communicator, right? Because Lucifer has been he's this immortal being, he's the devil, right? Like he doesn't know how to communicate well and have a relationship beyond the boundaries of the playroom. Like he
Yeah.
knows BDSM like communication, but beyond that, he's more naive than she is in that way. And so they're both kind of meeting these needs for one another and also trying to meet those needs for themselves, right? And so that's really a big struggle for them throughout the narrative, is how can we grow as a couple and sort of stand on more even footing, right? Because their dynamic initially started out very uneven, right? In dark romance terms,
Mhm.
with Charlotte being his employee, Lucifer has all this immortal power, she does not. And now here she is, like, supposed to be becoming his immortal queen. And so, what does that look like? How can she step up in a major way? So, like, yeah, it was really, really interesting to get to dive deeper into that dynamic and kind of like tease out those character elements
Yeah.
more significantly.
Yeah, and I think especially in the beginning, like you said, being able to dive into it a little bit deeper and seeing more how things had changed over the time that they've been in this dynamic, and things how they've all gone down essentially. I guess as someone who hasn't experienced that type of dynamic and might read something like how she has to kiss his, feet, his shoes in the beginning, or how she even had to work to get a pillow. And it's I love filtering it through my own brain and
Mhm.
kind of just exploring my own reactions to certain things. For someone who hasn't experienced that kind of dynamic, can you maybe give a little bit more insight into why those pieces are there, why they're in play?
Yeah, so some of what Charlotte and Lucifer are really working through in this book is the sort of rules and expectations within the BDSM elements of their relationship. And they really kind of jump into things way too quickly in book one, if we're
Yeah.
going like in terms of like I always put a disclaimer at the end of the books that like,
Yes.
these are for like the use of BDSM in this work is for fantasy purposes only. And like, so I want to be clear about that here when we're talking about it too. But like,
Yeah.
because it's not necessarily true to real life. But one of the ways that I was trying to kind of bring out some of the more truthful elements is that if we're honest and look at the way that Lucifer and Charlotte jumped into their BDSM relationship in book one, it's very fast. They don't really necessarily spell out everything that they need to spell out. And so some of what they're working out in book two is the fact that they have somewhat different expectations about what they want that dynamic to be like.
Mhm.
Um, and it's not that they're not aligned, it's just that both of them need to do some like communicating, right? So I think part of what they're working through in this book is like we see those really intense protocol heavy scenes, like you were saying, with them in the playroom where Charlotte's like having to kiss his shoes because like they're in dom sub role and they are actively like in a scene. But then where they're struggling isn't so much in the playroom, it's in the fact that they've extended their dynamic into a 24/7 element. And so Charlotte is not so sure about how she feels about having that dynamic in her life all the time outside of the playroom, right? Like they are very much happy when they are in the playroom together, like things are going well. They're like everybody's on board, but having Lucifer be dom of her life, even when they're outside the playroom, Charlotte isn't so sure she likes that. Like, so that's part of what they're working through and very much negotiating throughout the series. And then like, you know, if we're getting into spoiler alert coming, like, so by the end, like they've very much agreed that like, okay, we're going to continue this in the playroom dynamic, but maybe outside you have this bit more of freedom, right? Is what she's really wanting, because she really needs that to explore who she is without all the drama of her family background, right? Because she runs from essentially one abuser, which is her father, to her ex-husband, Mark, and then runs off to New York City and immediately ends up with Lucifer, who I don't want to call an abuser because I don't think that that is an accurate description of him, but is also a very like domineering, like controlling man, right? Because this is dark romance. And so she's always been sort of under someone else's control. And part of what Charlotte really needs to be in a healthy BDSM dynamic is to be able to be autonomous and like her own person without that hanging over her, right? And that's part of what she and Lucifer are really discovering in this book. So, and I think that that speaks to something that I think a lot of kinksters would agree with, right? Is the idea that you have to be in a healthy emotional place yourself in order to enter into a healthy dynamic, right? Like, and not like create a situation that like fosters codependency, basically.
Absolutely. And even looking at her journey throughout the book, you know, when he's like, you know what, if you're gonna act like a brat, if you're gonna act this way, and he like puts it down, he's like, fine, I'm gonna control everything. Like, your morning workouts, like everything. And so it totally makes sense when you reflect that, how in the playroom is when they have kind of the, I guess I want to say like the best interactions, but like you said, in the playroom they're good. That is also by the means, like that's essentially what triggers her ability to be able to say like, hey, I need to figure this out, and I need some space. And that was my favorite scene. Not that anybody is surprised ever, but the whole engagement play party, because I thought for sure, I was like, oh, it's gonna happen, you know, with the whole daddy death, by the way. Love his addition in here. And I was like, it's gonna happen, it has to happen. You caught me by surprise because it didn't quite happen. But we have Lust in there, Asmodeus. And that was that was fun as well. So I guess if there's, I guess just anything as far as creating that scene, and then essentially because she ends up walking away and leaving because she says she doesn't know, and everyone's like, great, we're gonna all kind of back off and give some space, which is beautiful to kind of figure this out, and how that leads to her saying, hey, I need some time to figure myself out, and then we can come back to this.
Yeah. It's funny because I had a reader ask me this at the New Romantic release party. She was like, why? Okay, she's like, I was so convinced it was going to be Asriel, that it was going to be Daddy Death waiting for her, and then it was Asmodeus. Why, Kate? Why? Like,
and then I was like, oh, she's going to go up to the rooftop. They're going to get it on there. And no, and I'm like, okay, I can wait, Kate. I can wait. It's fine.
It was it wasn't quite an intentional decision, right? Like it was and it wasn't. When I first went into writing that scene, I was like, am I gonna put Azrael in here? Am I gonna, like, is this the time? And I was very much wanting him to be in that scene just as much as y'all, because like, and I can say this especially now as having written book 3, I'm like a huge Azrael fangirl, right? And he's my own character. Like, I love him so much. But when I went to go write that scene and started putting him in as a character, it was too soon. And also that it was, I needed to a way, like when we're talking craft perspective, like I needed a way to really differentiate him and Lucifer and his relationship with Charlotte versus Lucifer's relationship with Charlotte. And I'm like, Azrael is nothing like Lucifer. And we find that out definitely in book 3 when his character is more on the page. Like, they are very different immortals. And so I was like, he's not going to rush into things with her. He's not going to, push things are not going to get hot and heavy super fast, because Azrael is just going to take things at her pace, right? Like, he's going to let her be. And because that's the exact opposite of what Lucifer would do, because Lucifer would very much push for her to be like, yeah, let's get this on, right? Like, so I really needed that contrast between them. And I also wanted the like romantic pining of like seeing him across the playroom and wishing that it had been him, because I think before that, like, we see Charlotte's attraction to him, but she doesn't really take it seriously, I think, until that moment, because she's like, oh, like, this is actually something that I need to deal with. It's not just, oh, I think he's hot, this is the crush. Right,
absolutely.
Like, so I think it, like, we needed that for her to also see that he was actually becoming that important in her life.
Yeah, for sure. The tension that you built was absolutely immaculate. And the minute he hit her with the baby girl, I was like, I'm sold. Yep. Yep.
I love hearing that, because like, so when I was editing like Wicked Believer, like when we were actively in edits, I have 2 editors, and one of them was like, I don't know about this whole Azrael thing. Like, I'm not sold on it yet. And I was like, okay, like this was in the very first draft, so it was different than this version. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure you're sold on this by the end of this draft, right? And so by the end of the draft, she was convinced, but she still was like, I don't know, like, I still prefer Lucifer. But then by the time we reached the end of book 3, she was like, I'm totally like team Azrael. Like, what? Like what happened? And I was like, no, like, I promise you, like, readers are gonna love Daddy Death. Just trust me. And like,
absolutely.
It makes me super happy to hear that like readers are really into him. Like, one reader who had came to the New Romantics like signing, had made me like a little like what are they, the letter bracelets, like the little alphabet bracelets that says Daddy Death on it, because she'd read an early arc. And I was like, yes, I knew you all were gonna love Azrael. Like, I feel vindicated.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, that was definitely an exciting addition to the story. And I am even more excited to see what goes on in the 3rd book.
There's everybody was asking me, well, is he going to be in there more? Of course. Yeah. Like, all 3 of them will be there. It's fine.
I trust you. You're like, I've got you. Don't worry.
Yeah, I've got you. It's okay.
Perfect. Okay. So beyond all of that fun times, things in the world for everyone else are maybe not as fun. What's kind of all going on in the background as far as the impending apocalypse, and especially as it regards to Charlotte's newfound power and what she learns about her role in all of this?
So things as far from an apocalypse standpoint are getting dark for both Lucifer and Charlotte, right? Like, we learn at the start of Wicked Believer from Lilith that like God's done with Earth, right? Like he's just ready for things to be over. And so Michael and the other angels have decided that like, well, maybe if we like start this apocalypse business up and like start basically screwing stuff up for humanity, maybe Dad will come back. Right? Like, so things are not great for humanity in this book. I wish I could say they get better in book 3, but they don't for a while.
Okay.
But yeah, so things start to go downhill fast because so Lucifer is very much trying to figure out where he fits into all of this throughout the narrative. Is he going to help the apocalypse along? Is he going to stop things in its tracks? Like, because he very much wants to protect Charlotte. Like, that is his number one priority. And he knows she does not want humanity to end, right? Like, she doesn't want to have to relocate to another universe, right? Like, this is a whole element that we hear, like, because they're like Lucifer and his siblings, if the world ends, they're just going to go elsewhere, right? Like, they're immortal. They don't stop existing just because the world ends. Right. So it's very much just humanity that is in the balance. And poor Charlotte ends up being in the midst of this, and we learn that she is the key to reopening the pearly gates, which are currently closed shut. Nobody can get in or out of heaven right now. Yep. Hell's getting overcrowded, which is
what a terrible time to die as well. If you're trying to get there and they're like, sorry,
sorry, like you can't. Yeah. So hell's overcrowded, which is causing problems for Lucifer, right? Like the demons are getting a little restless, which he's also dealing with in this book. So there is a lot of like different cosmic forces at play. So like, when I think about the image for this book, it's like you have Charlotte and Lucifer are like standing there on Earth and heaven's bearing down on them, hell's rising up beneath them, and they're like, and let's be honest, humanity is also not behaving itself because the righteous are still continuing to be absolute jerks throughout this series too. So Charlotte and Lucifer and the other siblings now, who eventually end up kind of getting on their side, are all like just sort of holding it all together very haphazardly as the world crumbles apart. So we, by the end of this book, we see that, the first seal of the apocalypse has been opened already. That strips Lucifer of his power, and which leaves their plans are now very precarious, right? Like it's kind of up to Charlotte at this point, and there's 6 more seals that need to be opened before the apocalypse is fully unleashed, and so it's go time.
basically. Can you talk a little bit more about, I feel like we see Lilith more in this book as well, and just kind of her like kind of chaotic energy, and then every time she shows up and like, again, the world is ending and she's like, grandbabies though.
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, Lilith is like in slightly like Dungeons and Dragons terms, she's like Lilith is chaotic evil, right? Like, so she's just like, and I love Lilith like as a mythology character, right? Like, and like I've played with her in previous series, and so there was never any question when I started this series that Lilith was eventually going to come up as a mythological character, because I just think she has so many fun feminist implications, but also like, religious ones in this context. And so she's been a very, very interesting character to write, because she's really like everything that Charlotte is not, basically, right? Like Charlotte is very much been taught to think about and consider other people, right? And she puts others before herself, and like, in the ways that we like women have been taught to to prioritize others. And Lilith is the exact opposite of that. She only cares about her own interests. Like, even when it comes to her kids, it's about what she wants for them. And so she is like the dark side of femininity. And so every time she shows up, I just love her character, because even when she's doing really horrible bad things, I can't help but like her.
Right, right. And I think that's the fun thing about those kinds of characters, is because, as you said, I think for the vast majority of us, we are taught, to put others first. And so having a character like that can always just be fun to, imagine or experience, even just like someone that is very free, very outspoken, that just says the things, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yes, one of the a loose inspiration for this is in the movie Black Panther, right?
Mhm.
The what's the name of the villain? Killmonger or something like that, I want to say is his name. But you understand why he's a villain, and when he gives his whole villain speech at the end, you're like, yeah, okay, I'm on board with why
Yeah.
you would be doing this. And that's really much very much where I'm trying to go with Lilith. I want, by the end of the series, y'all are gonna be like, oh, okay, she's horribly evil, but I get it now.
Again, cannot wait to continue on there. Tell us a little bit about where book 2 ends. Where's everyone kind of ending up?
Yeah, so at the end of book 2, Charlotte has been working to sort of, well, I don't want to say reunite, because they have never united before. Um, she's been working to unite Lucifer's siblings to get them to help her fight the apocalypse, right? She is
Yes.
convinced
Team
that
No Apocalypse.
team no apocalypse, right? She has very much been trying to use what little abilities she has mastered at this point, which is PR, and by proxy a little bit of manipulation, because that's what marketing is,
Yep.
to get the siblings to agree to help her and Lucifer stop the apocalypse, right? And she's been working on this kind of on her own in the background. She knows Lucifer won't approve, because he's taking a very different approach to fighting the apocalypse, more kind of going undercover. But then that plan goes awry when he loses his power, and so suddenly that plan isn't necessarily going to work anymore, and they kind of have to come together and unify their plan. And at the very end of Wicked Believer, when Charlotte is feeling absolutely triumphant that she has united all of Lucifer's siblings to help her during the apocalypse, she waltzes into his office super proud to tell him that this has happened. And he's like, well, the last time my siblings worked together on something, that was when the great flood happened, Noah's Ark, and
Whoops.
whoops, the world's about to end. So Charlotte has what is essentially this very oh shit moment at the end of book 2, realizing that maybe this great plan that she had to unite all these powerful celestials is not so great of a plan.
Because what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong when you have all of the 7 deadly sins working on one project?
Right. Yeah. It's like that's the ultimate group project,
Yes. Yeah, and Lucifer, as the oldest sibling, knows this better than anyone else, that controlling his family is a shit show.
Yeah, yeah. Admire Charlotte's efforts to get everyone
Yes.
together. And I think that was fun following her journey, and how she was kind of appeasing each of them throughout to get their, get them onto Team No Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's a bit of appeasing them, but also starting toward a bit of they may be assholes, but they're my found family.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Just like, got this.
Yeah.
Is there anything in Wicked Believer that you maybe haven't talked about that you're dying to?
Mm. I okay. Um I really love the dynamic that she develops with Asmodeus.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I feel like we need to just take a moment to talk about, like,
Yeah.
Asmodeus and her in the club in, like, the
Yes.
in-between, like, because I loved that scene. It was a lot of fun to write, like, letting Charlotte just kinda let loose.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I loved it. I will always say lust is my sin of choice, I think.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and uh, seeing her interact with him, and again, knowing her dynamic with Lucifer and keeping all those things in mind, but then just having fun. There's something
Yes.
about just having fun. And I think that's what I connected. I made a note of it somewhere as I was reading, where they put it together that, the idea of lust and maybe having that type of fun is
Mhm.
the spontaneity and just like making the choice, impulsive choices,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause one of the things that I knew readers were really gonna be wanting in book 2 was that they wanted a little bit more insight into what the siblings' abilities are,
Yeah,
and, like, and we don't go too far into that, but, like,
yeah.
we do have that moment with Lust, right? Where Charlotte and, he and Charlotte have just, like, gone out to the club, right? Like, they've been doing all these really kind of impulsive, spontaneous things, and then it kind of goes to a dark place when Charlotte basically almost beats the crap out of some paparazzi who gets up in her face, right?
Hmm.
And it's unintentional, right? Like her immortal rage is kind of coming out in a way that is uncharacteristic for her. And when she realizes that, like, this is not a way that she would normally act, right? Once she's away from this person, she has the sudden realization that, like, that is the effect of being in Lust's presence, of being in Asmodeus's presence, is that he makes you more impulsive, like he makes you run off and make poor choices and poor decisions, right?
Yeah.
Like he is the ultimate playboy party boy, and like you're just gonna have to be along for the ride.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, it was interesting to kind of unlock that character a little bit more and
Yeah.
kind of show that side of his power, because like I'm very much looking forward to playing with that character more.
Absolutely. Oh, well, excited to dive more into that as well. I know you gave us a little bit at the very beginning about
Mm.
Beautiful Redeemer, when
Yeah.
it's going to be out. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so Beautiful Redeemer will be out on May 19th, and we we pick up close to where the end of Wicked Believer left off, and don't worry, Azrael is still there. I know that was readers' like number one worry when they were asking me questions about book 3. Is they're like, are we going to get more Azrael? Yes, you still get Azrael's
Good.
POV throughout all of Beautiful Redeemer. You know, Lucifer and Charlotte are still there. So we get more of Charlotte and Azrael's budding dynamic. We get more of Lucifer and Charlotte, of course, and we get some of Lucifer and Azrael, right? Like this is
Of
going all
course.
ways.
Yeah.
Of course. Like Lucifer and Azrael have this very long celestial history between them, and we are very much rekindling some of those things in book 3. So romance wise, like we're going full Y choose here.
Yes.
Yeah, so no worries there. Like there's plenty of that to go around. And then plot wise, you know, they have their plan of what they're going to do to fight the apocalypse at the start of book 3, and they enact that plan, but as always things don't always go according to what they're hoping for, and the siblings don't always behave, and so uh Charlotte and Lucifer are really in the thick of fighting things in book 3.
Of course. It couldn't be that easy.
Yes. Yeah, it could not be that easy, that's for sure. I will say everything with their story arc is wrapped up by the end of book 3. I
Okay.
do have plans of playing with the other sinners more and hopefully writing some about them. But Charlotte and Lucifer's fight is definitely closed out. So
Okay.
book 3 is the big finale.
Perfect.
and
Good to know.
the longest of the 3 books in the series. So.
Oh, okay. Exciting. Yeah, that was definitely my next question of like, where's this going? Where's the journey? Yeah, very exciting, very exciting. Do you have any fun but I mean outside of like, we talked about smut lovers, any fun kind of bookish things that you're looking forward to throughout the rest of the year?
I'm definitely looking forward to Smut Lovers, like we said. Also looking forward to Romantasy Book Con, and then this week I will be signing at a local bookstore, the Family Bookshop in DeLand. So I'm excited for that. But other than that, I don't have a whole ton of big things on my schedule. But I will be at a Polycon next year, and I have never been to a Polycon, so
Ooh.
I'm very excited for that. And I'm like, hashtag Apollyon at a Polycon. Like, yeah, I'm for it.
That was like my first thought when I first read it. I was like, oh wait, I feel like I've heard that somewhere.
Yes, right. Like, yeah, Lucifer's last name is so similar, right? Like,
yeah, perfect. That is so exciting, and I'm excited to hear your experience of it. I was so bummed. I was literally in DC the same weekend that was happening, but I had like meetings and appointments. So it was like a work thing. And I was like, I'm so close and so far at the same time.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But
that would be hard.
Exactly, yeah. But luckily I'll also be at Romantasy Con too. And luckily it's been a very calm season so far with the like weather wise, so hopefully that just continues on. But
yes, let's hope.
Yeah. Well, Kait, thank you so much again for joining me. If anyone's interested, of course I'll have all the links and stuff in the description, but where can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me at www.kaitballenger.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter, which does have Original Sinner bonus content. You can also find me on social media. I'm most frequently on Instagram and TikTok, just at kate.ballenger. And so, yeah, come say hello.
Perfect. Well, I will see you soon, and then I will patiently wait for a beautiful Redeemer.
Yes, yeah. So many readers are like, I can't wait that long.
I'll be very patient. I understand. It's a lot to process, but yes, very much so. Looking forward to it. So thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on.
If you've made it to this point in the episode, thank you so much for watching. I'd be incredibly grateful if you showed some support either by following or subscribing, depending on what platform you're watching on, and leaving a comment. You can always follow me on Instagram at BusyReadingRomantasy or on TikTok at busy.reading.romantasy to see what I'm up to. You can also email me at busyreadingromantasy@gmail.com to tell me your thoughts, dreams, secrets, or if you just have any book and author suggestions you'd love me to cover. Grab yourself a good book, get cozy. I'll see you next Wednesday for a new episode.